debate that I would have from everything that we read in this chapter here is, if you were, let's say you were Denethor here, and you had full command of Minas Tirith, knowing that the enemy was coming, what are some changes that you would have made to bolster or strengthen the defense of the city? What are some actions you would have taken? What are some things that you might have like delegated to some other people? How would you put them in the best position to survive, I guess, is my biggest question to you. What mistakes do you think he made, and like how would you rectify them up until this point, what we saw? Because obviously we're not going to get into things that haven't happened yet, you know, and talking more about things that happen next week in the chapters. But just tell me what you would have done at the start to do things a little bit differently to put Gondor in the best position to be successful.
Well, first thing I would have done would have, instead of hiding in my tower up top waiting to find out what happened to Boromir, I would have actually reached out for aid to other people versus basically throwing in the towel like he's kind of been doing. And it's interesting to think. I feel my perspective on this versus kind of how it's portrayed in the film, I think more of the idea that it's trying to portray in the novel, it's almost like he's kind of gotten so depressed because of the loss of Boromir, like he just doesn't care anymore. Like, go, yeah, you are free. I thank you for your service. You are free to die how you see fit. Like, we're all about to die here. Like, who cares? Like, he's not even trying to put up a fight. Like, what's wild too is Gondor. You know, if you look at, you know, Middle Earth, Gondor has one of the greatest armies, actually. Like, honestly, they're the ones that Rohan should have called for aid. So I think in a way, like, you almost kind of wonder, do you think Gondor could have, if they had a strong leader, been able to hold up a resistance on their own for a while? But I think the big problem is Denethor just doesn't care at all. Like, no cares at all. But what I had done is, first thing I would have called for aid. Second, I probably would have put out scouts in a way, like how the Rohan riders did, to kind of guard the perimeter more, because then you can kind of see what's coming from a distance. Even though you've kind of seen, the problem is now you have the winged Nazgul, and once, you know, the Black Captain showed up, you know, it's kind of like in the words of Obi-Wan, it's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. Like, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can really do from that point. So I would kind of take more of the Helm's Deep approach and start really building a barrier there, and really kind of, I guess, kind of like how they did on the Long Night, like start kind of guarding the trenches, and I would try to take them on in a flanks position, which I think is what really they're kind of starting to do here with Gandalf as the lead. But there's just so many different things that Denethor could have done to begin with to prepare, but the bottom line is I don't think he cared enough to prepare. But what I would have done is reached out for aid. I would have put scouts on there. I don't think there is any consideration you can make to reaching out to elves or anything, because I don't think they have that kind of relationship. But you definitely could have reached out to other areas earlier and definitely made more of kind of a barricade situation where you could have held your own, at least until I'm being for a little bit longer. Even tried to reach out to Mithrandir, which is Gandalf. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I would have done a few things differently than he did. And I think the biggest mistake Denethor made was a prideful, like, arrogance of wanting to keep Osgiliath. He wasted a lot of his army by having them try to fight in an area where they were at a disadvantage. There was a small host because you can't split your forces of a defense of a main city and trying to keep a separate one and expect that's two small forces. Either you reach out all your force at the one area in front as Gilead, or you fall everyone back and try to have a big main defense of the city. Like the fact is, he didn't want Boromir in his mind, his last great deed of Gondor was that he took back Osgiliath, and it's like Denethor wanted to make sure that they didn't re-lose that after Boromir took it back for them. But I think that really screws them in a large way. So for me, I would have pulled everyone back from Osgiliath, and we would have defended the city at full strength instead of getting massacred at Osgiliath and only having a few riders come back. And then, because think about what that did to the morale of everyone at the city. Those were some of their best fighters, and you even see like Faramir retreating. Faramir is one of these captains that are beloved by the entire city. Everyone that meets Faramir thinks he's a great captain and a great guy. And you see him retreating from the forces. You're like, shit, like if he's retreating, what hope do we have, here? So I would definitely have pulled everyone's back. I definitely would have, in the plains themselves, I would have attempted, because there's really only one way you can attack Gondor, from the front over the plains. Right. So if you know that, I mean, I definitely would have set up, I don't know exactly what level of technology they had at this point in Middle Earth for the time beings, but I definitely would have set up stuff throughout the fields that made it difficult for the enemy to cross it easily. So like at least delay them, and then being able to take some arrows from far away or whatever it may be, but make it hard so they couldn't really bring those catapults in, the things that they were starting to shoot missiles from. If you set up a bunch of trenches in all the spots, like almost you were mentioning, and very similar in the Long Night End, where they put those wooden things with spears at the ends of them and put them all and staggered them across the plains. It's gonna be very hard to move those catapults in. At the very least, they still were able to do it because of the numbers and move all these trenches and these things out of the way. It still would have delayed them to allow aid to come sooner, to where it wasn't such a last minute ditch effort. That's one of the things I would have done. I definitely would have laced the plains with stuff that slowed the progress of the enemy. I would have pulled everyone back from Osgiliath. And then on top of that, I almost have an idea, instead of calling for aid sooner as it pertains to some of these outer areas, I would definitely have called for aid, but I would have positioned them in a way to where the hope for me would be that the enemy wouldn't know that aid was coming. It'd be like they were in a hidden area, but not near them. So basically, someone's like, oh man, no one came to help them. They're screwed. Let's go ahead and full on force take Gondor. And then as they fully commit their armies to the front of the plains, all of a sudden they're getting swept to the side by the Prince of Belfalis and the other areas that came to help them, with the 3,000 there. And then on top of that, hopefully with the slow moving of the enemy, with what we did in the plains and really kind of slowed them down a bit, that gave Rohan enough time to come from the other side. So you basically, you're attacking a brick wall up front, then you got people attacking it from the right side, Rohan attacking it from the left side, and you're just you're stuck. That's kind of what that's what I would have done. I would have done a lot better than that. I also would have taken Gandalf's counsel on a lot of things as well too, about who to reach out to, how to talk, whatever things that he would have taken in there. I would definitely want to work more collaboratively with other great minds versus thinking I just knew it all. So those are just some of the bigger things that I would have done to really give myself the best position to be as successful as possible. Look, at the end of the day, Mordor has countless numbers, and maybe it would have been all in vain anyways, but I think we would have had better morale, a better chance tactically and strategically, and on top of that, it would have give Frodo and Sam enough time to have what they needed to do, what they needed to do on their end, because the battle would have been such a stronger and more condensed one, and it would have gone, maybe not just because of the sheer numbers, maybe it wouldn't have gone fully in the good guys' favor, but it definitely would have been a lot I think it would have been a lot cleaner than it would have ended up actually being up until this